Hey y'all. So today it's Iyslander versus Oldhim, and let's get into it. And yeah, I've started calling it Iyslander now, sadly. Alright, so we won the die roll and chose to go first. So in this matchup, I am doing the fabtcg game plan. Not something I do against aggro, but it is something I want to do against a slower deck like Oldhim. Over there, we had a choice of arsenaling the Channel Lake Frigid or arsenaling Cold Snap. Arsenaling the Cold Snap. I choose Arsenal Cold Snap instead, because it's going to dig me deeper to my Frost X's. And Channel Lake Frigid isn't going to stop an Oldhim as much as, if they were an aggro deck. Alright, turn 1, we are getting Glacial Footsteps fused. That's pretty good from our opponent. And we do have a D-react, but, it's dominated, so we can just at most block 4, unfortunately. Yep, so we D-react, and we go ahead and sink. Yep, again, I'm just trying to dig to my Frost X's. I see my opponent has Sledge, which I do think is the correct hammer they should bring in. And so I can expect that my opponent, knows what they're doing. And I will need to, quickly get to my hexes, because I don't think they're gonna give me the time to, wait a long time to get to set them up. So it was really good for us that we managed to set something up turn 1. We got to set up a first Insidious Chill. I do like getting like 2 up in this matchup along with an Amulet of Ice. And then, yeah, and all 3 Frost X's. Opponent has AB2 and Crown of Seeds. So on our turn, we actually had the option there to, play the Winter's Bite and then just pitch another blue to Coronet Peak and save an Insidious Chill charge. But what I found in this matchup is that if the Oldhim is aggressive enough, you really can't afford to be that conservative with your Insidious Chill charges. You will just, need to use them to, like, survive until you can get all the Frost X's out. Right, so my opponent blocks 2, because they can only block 2, they are with the only AB2, and then they pitch another 2. Right? And we draw into another Insidious Chill. That's nice just after, we sort of strip like 2 cards from our opponent's hand, so that feels good. Okay, and my opponent plays an E-Strike. So yeah, I see this and I know my opponent is on a game plan that, they're supposed to be doing against me, where they basically they're running stuff like E-Strikes. I can totally expect Rouses and Zealous Beltings as well. And they basically don't want to give me time to set stuff up. They will continue to pressure me. Stuff like Zealous into a Sledge is a lot of damage. So my opponent E-Strike, and they declared the mode draw a card. And so I see a little opening here to hit them before the draw card resolves. The alternative is that I just block out this E-Strike and set up my second Insidious Chill. But another thing that you also need to consider for this matchup is that you do need to also chip them down. If they are, at 40, when you try and do your pop-off turn, you actually might not get there. You do want to get them to like somewhere in the 20s range. And since my opponent is playing this sort of aggressive sort of style, I do know that I do need to try and get in the chip damage when I can as well. I can afford to. Whereas if they are on a full fatigue strat, then yeah, then I'm gonna need to set up like all 3 Insidious Chills, all my Amulets of Ices, all Frost X's, and then I go on. But if they're on the full fatigue strat, I'm gonna have time to do it anyway. So yeah, so in this case, I go ahead and play the Aether Hail, do the Waning Moon, get in for 5 damage. And punish my opponent for, leaving themselves open. We go in Arsenal, the Insidious Chill, and we get to set this up. Unfortunately, we draw into a Frost X. This is not a good time for it, because I already have a 3-cost thing I want to set up in the Insidious Chill, and I also have this that I want to set up, so not the best here, but of course, when you have that many things that you want to set up in this deck, that will obviously happen. Oasis Respite, very nice card, especially when we have Tunic up. That's a recent addition to the list, because I found out that a lot of times the deck is built around, using just a full blue on your opponent's turn with a 1 cost and then a moon or something like that. That I found a lot of times my Tunic counter was just like staying there forever. So Oasis Respite really helps with being efficient there. Opponent just comes out with a CNC, which is extremely suspect. I'm fully expecting a pummel. So I do something weird here. I allow it to hit, and then in response to the hit trigger, I go ahead and City's Chill. And the reason I do it this way is because I believe that if I don't put any blocks in front of it, my opponent is more inclined to not pummel it. It's weird, but I do think that's the way it is. And, after I go to damage, that means my opponent can't pummel it anymore anyway. So I take the hit, which is only 6, which, from a 5-card hand of my opponent, only taking 6 damage, I'm totally happy to do that. And set up this Insidious Chill, and basically just waste the cards in my opponent's hand. And the reason why I say that I think they're less likely to pummel it is because they kind of want you to sort of say, like, Oasis Respite is like, you block it and Oasis Respite, and then they punish you by pummeling on top of that. And so if I just say no blocks and go all the way to damage, I can play this out and, waste those cards in my opponent's hand. And then on our turn, I get to go ahead and do the Frost Hex. So basically, I took 6 damage to play out Insidious Chill and Frost Hex. And Arseling Oasis Respite or Arseling D-Reacts in a matchup like this, I'm totally happy to do. Because, I'm rarely gonna be like, actually pushing damage on their turn. So, I just wanna, I'm totally okay putting a defensive stools in my arsenal. And we see a Scour, and you might be questioning why that's even in here. Well, it's because I just want a blue 3 block, and my sideboard didn't have any other blue 3 blocks. To be honest, this is the one off in this game. This was the one off Scour, and then I still had 2 CNCs in the list. But I think moving forward, I'm actually gonna sub all the CNCs out for Scours, because I'm basically like sending a CNC at my opponent is like it's not part of the game plan. Whereas Scour is a blue block 3. So yeah. Opponent comes at us with a disable, and they have 1 float with a tuning counter. We already know the previous turn they were sort of representing a pummel, so I can totally expect a pummel here. Alright, so we go ahead and sync, and we get to sync away the D-React, which is awesome, because that's the Sigil of Permafrost is something I want to see after I've got my Frost Hexes set up, not and it's not something I want to use before then. So I gotta sync it away while saving 4 damage, and yeah, there we go. That's the pummel, and we go ahead and Oasis Respite it as well. We gain a life, and then we will take 4. Cool. And we can just go ahead and discard the red. Yeah, there was no way for me to play it while keeping an arsenal. And it's not something I'm going to pitch, since I've just pitched a Sigil of Permafrost. Cool. On our turn, we just go ahead and use Card and Peak. Cool. Opponent discards Erase Face instead of pitching it, and that's because that's not something they want to see when, the pitch stack comes around. They want to see blues, because they know by the end of this, they're going to have all the Frost Hexes, and I'm going to have all my taxing effects, and they just want to draw a hand of blues when that happens. So they opt to discard their Erase Face instead of pitching. Very good play by opponent there. This is a bit of an awkward Oasis Respite hand, since, well, I mean, it's fine. We have a 0 cost in Arsenal, so we can do that, and Waning Moon, and Oasis Respite 1 left over. Right, so opponent comes at us with a Frostfang. So we actually have a very convenient way to block this. We can just, pitch the Blizzard to Oasis Respite, which basically blocks 5 total, and we have the 2 float for when the Frostfang hits to just, pay for it. So we took no damage, and, and we, paid for the Frostfang. Of course, if we get pummeled, then, that puts a wrench in this plan. But we didn't, so that's perfect. And I don't even use my arsenal, because on my turn I'm just going to set up the second Frost Hex. And go ahead and pass it over. Okay, and then we draw Sigil of Permafrost with Freezing Point. Now these two together is a very, very good combo, but you do need to set it up. It's a very good combo once your opponent has like 3 Frost Hexes. You Sigil, and then you do a Fused Freezing Point, which threatens 8 damage because of the 3 Frost Hexes. And And threatens 8 frostbites because you use the Fuse Sigil Permafrost. Of course, that's, I mean, it uses your Striders, but that's a sort of like end game sort of combo that I want to do. Unfortunately, I actually make a mistake here, which I will pay the price for later on, as you will see. I knew that I wanted to do these two things together later on, so I was like, ooh, let me pitch stack them. The thing is, you don't want to pitch stack them together. You want to see the freezing point first, arsenal it, and then in the next hand see the Sigil of Permafrost. So yeah, but in this case, I actually did pitch them both together. And then later, when it came back around, it was really awkward, as we will see. Anyway, so our opponent comes at us with a Fused Oakenold, and we unfortunately cannot block it. If we had Oasis Respite, we potentially could, along with the Ironhide Gauntlet. But we do not have it, so we're gonna be taking the damage here. So I'm just trying to think about how I want, what cards I want to see again. And I know I want to see the Sigil and the Freezing Point again, so... what I could do is, block with one card, use, like, the Cold Snap to pitch to, like, Waning Moon, and then my Sigil and Freezing Point go to the bottom from the Oakenold hit. So it's, sort of like our opponent is helping us pitch stack. Okay, I'm just going to skip ahead here because I did tank on that for a while. So what I ended up doing was trying to chip at my opponent, basically. I figured I'll be... Yeah, I'm just going to use this opportunity to chip at my opponent. I go ahead and play the Sigil of Permafrost and fuse it, and also play the Arctic Incarceration. And I use my 2 float to Waning Moon. My opponent blocks 2 of it and gets an additional Frostbite. So they end the turn with 3 Frostbites, 2 from the Incarceration, 1 from the Waning Moon. And then they take the Frostbite damage instead of pitching into it. And I sent the Freezing Point and the Blue Aether Hail to the bottom. So Freezing Point is near a Blue Ice card, which is nice. And then we drop, and, our opponent has full tempo because we did just get hit by a Fused Oakenold. And then they come at us with Arouse the Ancients, revealing those cards. So, that's really painful. Like I said, this Oldhim opponent knows what they're doing and knows that he cannot just, give us time to set up. So I'm looking at this, and I realize I'm just going to need to take damage to get to Arsenal this Cold Snap. And arsenaling the Cold Snap means, it draws me a card, it lets me block more next turn, and basically just digs me deeper to my 3rd Frost Hex. Cool, and then we get sledged in the face, and we block 3. Our opponent used Tunic and pitched a blue to do that sledge, and they revealed a CNC. So we know that they've kept a CNC somewhere. It's either the Arsenal or the last card in their hand. Alright, and then we draw into 2 D-Reacts, which would be unfortunate if our opponent does CNC us. Okay, and then we, get roused again, which is pretty unfortunate. And opponent reveals Oakenold and Macho Grande. Yep, so we'll just go ahead and Cold Snap, see what our opponent does about the Frostbite and the Freeze, and we get to draw the card. And then these Fate Foreseens will also help us dig deeper to the pieces we need. Hypothermia might also be a card that you might be wondering why it's in the list. Well, it's exactly because of stuff like this. Now, if an Oldhim knows what they're doing, they sort of need to put on their best Briar cosplay and basically just go as wide as they can. And so Hypothermia can actually block you 6 damage from Arsenal. So imagine Hypothermia in a turn like this, where your opponent has done a Zealous or a Rouse or an E-Strike, and they're going to follow up with a Sledge. You use Hypothermia, and then you've stopped the Sledge attack, basically giving you 6 life from an Arsenal card. Whereas normally you're like, ooh, do you need Hypothermia against Oldhim? Well, the thing is, if the Oldhim is trying to be all defensive and fatiguing you, putting Hypothermia in Arsenal doesn't cost you anything. I mean, it's a free card from Arsenal. And you're probably winning the matchup anyway. But if the Oldhim, does try to do this sort of aggro stuff into you, it saves your life. So that's why it's in the list even. That's why it's what I brought in from the sideboard. And then our opponent, so we block this, and our opponent crowns, and I respond to the crown, before the damage prevention is active. I use a Waning Moon, because I know all they have left is an Oakenold, which is a red card. So I was like, let me just chip in a bit more damage right now, and then you can draw your card. Okay, so our opponent didn't draw a blue, and that's fortunate for us, but they did still draw an attack. They do still manage to come at us with another attack. They come at us with a Zealous Belting. It has go again, but obviously doesn't. That's not going to be relevant when our opponent doesn't have any cards. So we'll just Fate Foreseen again, so I get to Arsenal this Hypothermia, and hopefully, use that to actually stop a second hit from opponent next turn. Alright, opponent comes out with an erased face. So we can just keep the Hypothermia in there. There isn't anything I want to put in my arsenal like over this Hypothermia right now, so I'll just keep it there. It might save us some life later. But then we get hit by a pummel. Nothing we can do about this. We just take the 4 and discard. And we discard the Winter's Bite here. So on our turn, we actually have an interesting decision to make. We could pitch the Amulet of Ice to Coronet Peak, or we could just play it out if we think we need it. And I actually opt to play it out. And the reason for this is because my opponent's running Crown of Seeds. And so a very interesting thing that might happen if all you have instead is Chills to tax their hand is that, suppose, they pitch some stuff to throw an attack at you, and then, you fuse a Sigil of Permafrost. They can just let the Insidious Chills resolve, and after they've resolved, they use their floating to crown, so that they get a card back in their hand. And for that sort of situation, I want to have the Amulet of Ice, because so that even after they get the card back in their hand, I can still get it out of them with the Amulet of Ice. And then opponent comes out with a CNC, and they pummel it. So that's the third red pummel we've seen so far. It's pretty annoying that that we got red pummel twice in a row. But at least it wasn't on like a hand that we really needed to keep or anything. If there's a hand to be pummel, it should be these hands rather than like a Frost-X hand or something. And then I just go ahead and play out the Hypothermia, just because now there is something I'll put in my arsenal, the Insidious Chill. Although that may not be right. To be honest, now looking at this, I probably shouldn't have gotten rid of the Hypothermia. I probably should have just done this. Just kept... Yeah, wait, oh my god, this was actually such a misplay. I don't know why I played out the Hypothermia at all. I think at first I was like, oh, let me put this Insidious Chill down. And when it came to my turn, I was like, wait, I have 2 Insidious Chills and an Amulet of Ice. You know what? It's not worth it. I need to Coronet Peak to survive. And I ended up just wasting the Hypothermia on opponent's turn. That was so bad. Yeah, this is just very, very not good play by me. And our opponent sets up a Channel Lake Frigid, which is actually extremely bad for us, despite us being an ice hero. Honestly, petition for Iyslander to be immune to Channel Lake Frigid, please. Thank you. I mean, how ridiculous is it? I'm an ice hero. I should be, like, thriving in the Channel Lake Frigid. But anyway, so it's here, and it's really bad for us. And then we can fully expect a Sledge after this, and we don't have... I'm not blocking with the Frost-X. The Amulet device doesn't block, only the CNC blocks. So just a little unfortunate about how these things turned out. Also, because of Channel Lake Frigid, I don't have an easy way to just activate Coronet Peak. I can't just pitch one card for it. Yep, so we get sledged, and then, I just go ahead and just play the Oasis Respite. I would love to, tunic out the Respite, and I can still set up the Amulet of Ice, or, maybe play the Frost-Hex. But Channel messed up our plans there. And yeah, there we go. But we have found a third Frost-Hex. We had 5 health, but that is the final piece. We have 2 Insidious Shields and an Amulet of Ice. So, if we can get that out, arsenal this Ice Eternal, we'd actually be in a very good spot. Okay, so opponent pitches, and that's not the way they pitched, pitched Oakenhold first and then a blue, that's not indicative of them having a bad hand. It's just more of they needed the Oakenhold in there for the Zealous Belting to have go again. Yep, so given that we are towards the end game, this Coronet Peak is actually not going to be very useful anymore. Because, now at this point, I'll be using my resources to, like, send fuse attacks on my opponent, or, like, pitch everything into Ice Eternal sort of stuff. So, don't need to keep that around. And then the Sledge comes out. We block 3. And this is so on our turn, I can put out the Frost Hex of my opponent and arsenal the Ice Eternal. Okay, and the channel goes away, like, finally. Okay, I say finally, I mean, it was only there for one turn, but still. Cool, that goes, and then we draw into this hand, which is awkward as heck, because we just arsenaled an Ice Eternal. So we kind of want a handful of blues, but we draw this, and yeah, okay, so I misspoke earlier. I said that I think I pitch stacked this. No, this was just randomly drawn, actually. We have not hit the pitch stack yet. So, yeah, so just unfortunate that we drew it like this. But, you know, we did sort of... okay, on one hand, it's unfortunate that we drew it like this. On the other hand, we do have the two combo pieces we want immediately, which is the Freezing Point and the Sigil of Permafrost. So I like to make a weird play here to make this work. And to be honest, I'm not sure if that was a correct play. But you'll see in a second. Basically, I realized that I can stop the sledge swing. I can block out and stop the sledge swing and go into next turn with Freezing Point in arsenal and my Sigil of Permafrost in hand. And the way I do that is that I actually just play the Ice Eternal without pitching into it. And I fuse it with the Ice card, so that triggers the Insidious Chills, which ideally takes both cards from my opponent. Which means next turn I'm gonna have Freezing Point Arsenal, Sigil of Permafrost, and still one more Insidious Chill charge and the Amulet of Ice. Yeah, so I go ahead and do this. I fuse the Ice Eternal with no pitch. Honestly, yeah. It's a bit of an awkward hand here with two reds and a yellow when we arsenal that Ice Eternal. But anyway, so we get double Insidious Chill triggers. Our opponent does opt to pitch both cards. They could have pitched one and used a Tunic, I think, and have an arsenal. But I think they prioritize the Tunic counter over the arsenal. And then we get to block this completely. So yeah, so basically that cost us the Insidious Chill charges. But we still have one more Insidious Chill and an Amulet of Ice, and our opponent has no cards. Has no arsenal. So that feels good. And then we drop and we draw into 3 blues this time. And we have, yeah, so we have the combo here. Yeah, there's a good chance we can actually kill our opponent on this turn. Okay, so our opponent swings the sledge and has 2 float, and that 2 float is very, very ominous, right? We have seen all 3 red pummels, but just the way our opponent's been playing with all the Zealouses, all those Rousers, and the E-Strikes, I am, you know, I have to be worried that they also are running like a yellow or blue pummel. Unfortunately, I don't see a way that I can actually play around it. So I just block as if, you know, as if they don't have it. And just hope that, you know, that they actually don't have it. Yeah, and the sad thing is, because Sigil of Permafrost is a defense reaction, by the time I play it and fuse it, my opponent can respond to the Insidious Chill triggers, to an Insidious Chill trigger by just doing the pummel right then and there. So, yeah, so it's... like, I could, you know, maybe tax them out of it if I just Storm Stride this first with a Freezing Point, before we go to reactions. But, you know, that won't kill them. Because I do need the Freezing Point to put the Frostbites on them from the Sigil of Permafrost fuse. So I decide I'm not gonna play around the yellow pummel. We've been hit by all 3 red pummels. And our opponent does have, you know, all those Rousers and Zealouses and E-Strikes, so... it's like, it just feels like there's too much of a deck building cost to also have the yellow pummel, so I choose not to play around it. So what I do is just put this Ironhide in front of it, and I can put the Sigil in front of it, which will block 5, which means it's not lethal, but my follow-up is actually gonna be lethal. Right, so we go ahead and we put Ironhide in front of it, and we move to reactions. Of course, my opponent even has a pummel. They wouldn't pummel it here because, I mean, this is lethal. They can just afford to wait. So I go ahead and Sigil and I fuse it, and then Insidious Chill triggers, and let's see if our opponent has the pummel. And they do, so they are running the yellow pummels as well. So we do die here. from, yeah, this yellow pummel, there's nothing else we can do. We are, of course, threatening lethal. Even if that was a blue card, we do have lethal, I believe. But yes, so we just die here. Because the Frostbites deal damage at the end of my opponent's turn, but we don't even get there. Because I died before then. But anyway, just to play it out, we go ahead and, I just go ahead and do my thing. Just to show what would have happened if there wasn't the pummel. So the Insidious Chill resolved, they paid the 2 floating, and I used the Amulet of Ice. And they paid with the other blue. They have 1 float. And then I Freezing Point, this is coming in for 8 total. They use the Tunic resource and the 1 float to block 2 of it with the AB2. They take 6 Frostbites. And then I pitch this Ice Bolt to Waning Moon for a further 3. They can block 2 of it, but then the 6 Frostbites are threatening 18 at the end of my opponent's turn. So that would have been lethal if we had survived until then. Even if the pummel was just a different blue card. So there we go. That was the game. I think this was a really good showcase of what an Oldhim needs to do to be able to win this matchup. The Oldhim, like I said earlier, just needs to put on the best Briar cosplay they can and just keep going wide and keep going really full aggro. My opponent was running 3 E-Strikes, 3 Zealous Beltings, 3 Rouse the Ancients, and 4 Pummels. And even then, they just got there. This was the turn where if they didn't get there, they were dead. So that's, yeah, so I think it was just a really good game of what the Oldhim needs to do and how, the Iyslander, kind of has its inevitability if the Oldhim does not go fast enough. So yeah, thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed it.